Potato chowder is my go-to comforting soup during the winter, and you're gonna see why. It comes together really quickly, has the smokiness from the ham, but it's also just a really good soup. I think you're gonna love it, and I think we better make it together. Let's go. When it comes to potato soup, there are so many ways. This is a potato chowder with a little bit of cheese in it. It's a classic growing up that we had. And honestly, we'd usually make it around the holidays, it seems like, because whether we were having the main family event or it was after the holidays and we were still getting together, soup is such a great way to have a nice meal that doesn't take as much work and it can serve a lot of people. So this is a nice hearty soup. It's very traditional, just very homey. It's what I love. So we're starting with some butter that is melted in the stock pot. Now, I'm using butter because butter has to me a more rounded, rich flavor. And when we're working with potatoes, that can kind of be, potatoes need to take on flavor. The butter to me really helps that. And it really brings out other flavors and adds that rounded richness. So that's why to me, making sure I start with butter is important in this one. So now with the onion, we're gonna saute some celery too. Now the celery to me is a classic when it comes to a chowder like this. So I'm just chopping it up. Now some of the pieces you're gonna see, I'm not dicing it as fine as the celery because I don't mind that we're gonna see the celery I'm not dicing as fine as the onion is of course what I meant. And that's because I wanna be able to know what's in there. Certain things like onion will kind of melt away sometimes, but I want the celery to have a little bit of oomph to it. So I'm gonna take these right over to my butter that's melted, hopefully heated. Oh yeah, we're gonna hear the sizzle. I love that. So to me, anytime that you can have your butter heating, your oil heating, whatever it is, and then you put in your vegetable, hearing that sizzle means it's gonna actually saute correctly, and that's really important. So I'm gonna add in these remaining bits, let this saute for a little bit and cook down, and we'll keep going. I'm grabbing some minced garlic that I just minced up, and what we have here are the wonderful now slightly softened onion and celery. Now you can see I'm not getting a lot of color on it, I just want it softened. And the reason I didn't cook the garlic the whole time with is garlic can sometimes get bitter or burn if you cook it too long. So I didn't want to do it too long. Now to that, this is when I want to add some salt. I always like to make sure I'm layering my seasoning. Now do remember, potatoes really need seasoning. They really need salt. They really need things like black pepper. Like that's not near enough black pepper, so I'm gonna add a little bit more and crack it right in there. The thing is, potatoes really soak in so much that you really wanna make sure they're seasoned well. So I'm gonna stir that around, let it just begin to cook the garlic a little bit here, and we're gonna talk about now the next steps of the beautiful soup here, which are carrots. Now the reason I didn't cook the carrots right away is I want them to maintain more structure, and I'm keeping them in nice pieces. You can see they're kind of half moon pieces, and that to me just keeps a nice texture on the carrots, which to me is super important. I think carrots to me, especially in this like potato type chowder soup, are a classic. You need that carrot in there. For the potatoes I'm using, one of my favorites is a red potato. Now, red skin potatoes, the reason I like them is, again, they hold a good texture, they'll get soft, but they also just maintain a great kind of consistency to them. And I'm dicing them in a somewhat small dice. The thing is, what we're doing, we're gonna kind of make sure this soup thickens, but naturally. And how we're gonna do that is, once everything's cooked, we're gonna actually take some of the potato, and we're gonna just blend it a little bit. And I know that sounds kind of odd, like how are you gonna do that? But it's easier than you think. And then it's a nice natural way just to thicken it up. So I have these, I'm gonna chop up just a few more here. But what we did in this time was we cooked the garlic. So it's now nice and fragrant, I smell it. So now we can really begin to assemble. So I'm gonna just finish chopping these up, then we're gonna throw everything in the pot and let it cook. I've been taking all my carrot and potatoes right over here, and you can see I'm just throwing them in the pot. This is the best part of soup. It's when everything just comes together really quickly. So I have some sprig of thyme and some rosemary. Now both of those just add a nice flavoring to it. And then what I have here is my chicken stock. So we're gonna add that in too. Now chicken stock just has more flavor. If you would wanna do this vegetarian, obviously you could leave out the ham we're about to add and the chicken stock, and you could do a vegetable stock. But we're gonna do the chicken stock, and it's gonna complement those smoky flavors of the ham we're gonna add, but we're gonna let this come to a simmer, and then we're gonna add the ham. So this has been simmering for a while, and it doesn't look like that much now, but you can see these herbs have done their job. See how they're just like, all their leaves have pretty much fallen off? That's how I love to use an herb, to just pick out then the stems and leave all the goodness behind. So we're gonna pick those, just set those aside, and now I wanna kind of work on thickening the soup ever so slightly. So some of these vegetables what they do, like the potatoes too, is they actually help it thicken. So I'm gonna take some of them, even if you get some carrot in there, that's fine, don't worry about that. The skin on the potatoes you notice we left, that's all fine. It actually adds to the color, which I think is nice too. What I'm doing is gathering some, and we're just gonna blend them with an immersion blender. And that's gonna create a thickened portion of the soup. This is a great way to thicken almost any soup. So I'm gonna put it right in here. I'm gonna take my immersion blender. You can do a countertop blender too, whatever works. And then we're just gonna start blending it up. So you just wanna blend that until it's smooth. And I actually love how this is, to me, anytime I make a soup, this is usually how I will thicken it. So I'm gonna pour this back in, and it adds some body to the soup. It adds some great texture to the soup. It adds all that flavor back in. Potatoes already have, obviously, their natural starch. So it starts bringing that together. So we're just gonna stir that in. And to this too, just to give it a little bit more of a richness, but you see how already we have a texture to the soup. It now has some body to it. We're gonna add a little bit of cream. This is just driving home that beautiful richness. It's gonna really round out the flavors. Now, while this is just coming back up to temperature, I wanna get our ham ready. We're gonna throw it in, let it cook in here, and we're gonna have soup. So we have everything in the soup except for now, the ham. Now, ham to me is a classic addition here because it has that smoky flavor. And what's great is, if you're after the holidays, let's say you have leftover ham, maybe from a big meal, maybe even leftover mashed potatoes, you can add that right in here. Mashed potatoes will thicken it beautifully. Leftover ham will do the same thing. Or you can do a ham steak, and that's what this was. You can just purchase ham steak and have it ready to go. So I want the ham in here now, and it's gonna just warm through. It's gonna add all that flavor right to the soup. And I'm gonna also add in some cheese, just some cheddar cheese. You can do whatever type of cheese you like, but cheddar is kind of just more gonna give it that color, also give that little bit of sharpness. So I'm gonna let this heat through, let it warm through with the ham, make sure everything is hot and ready to go, and this is ready to serve. So I let this just come back to a simmer, make sure it was heated all the way through, but look at that beautiful soup. You have the big, beautiful vegetables. There's some pieces of potato, and then a lot of them have kind of just gone into the soup, helped thicken it and give it body. This is to me such a, well, one, nostalgic soup, but two, it's just a really comforting, hearty soup, especially on cold days, cold winter days. Look at how beautiful that is. You see all the pieces of everything. I like to put some parsley on top. Okay, I know green just seems like you're just throwing some green on top. Parsley does have flavor, especially the flat leaf, I think just has a good flavor. And it just adds a little bit of bright freshness to it, which I think can be important sometimes when you're having something like a soup that's been sitting for a while and just, you know, on the stove. This actually adds something to it. It's piping hot, which is exactly how soup should be served with some crusty bread. I think you'll be surprised, that's so good. You'll be surprised how much flavor this has to it. It was well seasoned, which was that salting in the beginning was super important. The ham also has a saltiness and a smokiness that comes through. But then look at those beautiful pieces of the carrot in there. You have still some pieces of potato, which I love, with the skins, which just add great texture. The ham adds a real obvious meatiness, but also just like a filling quality to it. This is a delicious soup. It's perfect for during the winter. It's perfect if you're gonna have people over, just to have a big pot of this ready to go. So everyone can still have something delicious and just have it going with all the components you want to go with it on like a buffet type style table. So I hope what you do with this is share this video around. I hope you share this video. I hope so not only you, but others can see and be inspired to know that good, delicious food is doable to make at home. If I can do it, you can do it. And it brings people together. It's a great way to have your family around, friends around, and enjoy something delicious. Check my website, wiseguy.com, for this recipe. All my other recipes, they're all on there, because that's the point. It's sharing them, enjoying them together, and having some good food.